Mama Troy. Hi, Mama Troy.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Mama Troy is the widowed wife of Bradley Nowell, who was the original singer of Sublime. And your son is now the new singer of Sublime.
Yes, he is. Jacob.
Yeah,
Jacob Nowell. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Recently, since December of this year.
Yeah. And you must be so proud.
I am really proud. It blows my mind. I mean, he's been in his own band for 10 years now. First it was called Law, and then about 4 years ago, he went solo, and now he's called Jacob's Castle. And he's signed with Epitaph, and he's touring a lot and working a lot. And he's great performer, great stage presence. And since December, he's been singing with Bud and Eric. Bud is the drummer of Sublime, and Eric's the bass player. And Bud and Eric haven't even played together in probably 10 years.
That's amazing.
And excuse me, Jake's never played with them until December. And it was supposed to be one show. It was for HR, who's the singer of legendary Bad Brains. I got a call from Norwood, who's the bass player from Fishbone, in September to asking for Eric Wilson's number, the bass player, because they were putting together a benefit show for HR from Bad Brains. HR suffers from cluster headaches. And for people that aren't familiar, cluster headaches they call them suicide headaches. They say 100 times worse than a migraine. There's no cure for it. They don't know what causes it. They've just been trying to figure it out. He's been suffering from them on and off for probably going on 20 years. Wow. Anyway, so he got a treatment. HR got a treatment. It was like a magnet treatment or, something different, alternative. And it actually worked for a while. It took away his cluster headaches for about almost 2 years. And now they're back. I mean, can you imagine being out of pain after being in that much pain? So the industry, the punk rock alternative industry, all adore Bad Brains and HR, put together this benefit show, and they called me for Eric's number, asked, do you think he would want to play? I'm like, well, yeah, he wants to play, because he and HR are really close, and Sublime, one of their influences big time was Bad Brains. Right. They were around since the early 80s or late 70s. So a week later, they called me for Bud's number. They said, well, do you think Bud would want to play? I'm like, yeah, he want to play. Then a week after that, they called me and asked for Jake's number. Do you think Jake would want to sing? And I said, no, because he's never wanted to do his dad's music. He doesn't listen to reggae, punk rock, ska, and hip hop. His influences are, hard rock and alternative. And, I go, but I'll ask him. And so I called him up, asked him, and Jake's first response was, yeah, I want to play. So it was supposed to be that one show. It was, early December. Shortly after those calls, I started working on the benefit with, Norwood and, Kentia, who's the other organizer. Anyhow, the boys practice, I'd say 3 times before the show. So I remember Jake being a little bit nervous because he's never done his dad's. I mean, he's done a couple like acoustic here and there or whatever, but he doesn't know the whole catalog, and he just never really thought about it before. And so the day before, he was a little nervous. And the funny thing is that Eric Wilson, the bass player, after the first time they jammed out, I go, how did he do? And he goes, well, with some voice lessons and some guitar lessons, he'll be great. Give him a hard time. Right. Tough love, but it was magic. When we got to the venue, it was downtown LA. We got to the venue the night of the show, and there was a line of people around the building. We sold it out like within a week before the show.
Yeah, I remember when this was going on.
Yeah. And all the money went to HR and his medical bills. And it's sad, somebody who's such a huge influence on punk rock music can't even afford his own medical bills.
Was what he did to help him? Did he stop doing that when it went away because he thought it was?
I guess it's a one-time thing.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, why wouldn't they do it again,
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. I heard it was with magnets, something about magnets, but they've tried everything.
I was with them and Wilson, and they were like talking about Jake coming on and doing it. And I was like, I wonder why that never happened. And Wilson was like, I'm sure eventually one day, we'll get around to this conversation. And I was like, oh yeah, I feel like that'd be a hit, And that was the first time I even looked at Jake or saw what he was. I think he was still doing music, yeah. And then I think fast forward a year, and then Sherman called me and told me, and it was
That's so rad.
And then it was I don't know, I think they're gonna get rid of Rome, and this is
It had nothing to do with that though.
No, of course not.
No, but the fans think that Jake joining Bud and Eric made
it had nothing to do with
Sublime
that.
with Rome dissolve, but they had dissolved.
Yeah.
Eric left Sublime with Rome in September,
Yep.
and about 2 weeks after he left is when I got the phone call from Norwood, asking for his phone number to do the benefit show. So it totally happened.
Weird how the
stars
universe happens
aligned
like that, right?
Yeah, big time.
Crazy.
Because for a long time, Sublime fans have been saying, online and stuff, why doesn't Jake play for Sublime with Rome? Because, why doesn't Jake take Rome's place? But that wasn't his path at the time.
It wasn't the time for it,
And I think now that Rome's free, he's going to, surprise everyone with his music because he's a great artist himself.
Yep.
So it was a good 10-year run, and they kept the music alive, and but just the time was right for everyone to move on. I hope.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
When I say Sublime, I mean the new Sublime with Jake. And it's just so cool because Bud and Eric are reunited and they're just having fun. It's a tribute band paying tribute to their brother and Jacob's dad. And it's just really cool.
I love that.
Yeah. And then there's also a new song out, which I don't believe, and I don't really think they are going to write any new music as Sublime because Bradley wrote all the music, but they're going to find, there's endless hours of cutting room floor recorded vocals of Brad's. And there's a song that just got released about 3 weeks ago, maybe longer. No, 3 weeks ago. It's Sublime featuring Stick Figure. And there's a whole story behind that. But Stick Figure basically got unheard lyrics of Bradley's and not really a whole song. So they were able to piece together a puzzle and make a song out of it. And it's bizarre to, a lot of people are kind of thrown off in a good way hearing Bradley sing again. But this is stuff that, he recorded ages ago and well before he passed away, and they made a song out of it. It's so good. It's called Feel Like That. So you can find it on all platforms. It's really, really good. And they waited a long time to get this song out. But it's super dope. Yeah, I'm from San Diego. I grew up in Claremont and then Pacific Beach. Started working in Pacific Beach when I was about 16. Sushi bar, Ichiban, it's down there. It's been there forever. And this is like 1986 when there was only 2 other sushi bars in PB. Now there's one on every corner practically. There was one tattoo shop. Now there's tattoo shops everywhere. And I started going to shows when I was 14. My first show was Madness in the parking lot of the Jack Murphy Stadium, which is now, what is it now? The Dragonfly Stadium?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Snapdragon.
Snapdragon. And the tickets were 91 cents for Madness, and it was in the parking lot because 91X, which is our alternative radio station here, had just started. So the tickets were 91 cents. And once I went to that first ska show, which I've always been a rude girl, into two-tone ska, which is from England, like Madness, The Selector, The Specials. But once I went to that first concert with Madness, I was hooked. I was like, these are my people. And I just kept going to shows, and there wasn't always a lot of ska around. It was still really underground. So I'd go to like punk rock shows. I'd go to any shows I could, I had friends in all different genres. And if it wasn't for music, I wouldn't have met Bradley. That was I worked so that I could get money, so I could get gas to put in my car to go to shows. Like I saw Bad Brains at Iguanas. And if those of you who know, I'm aging myself, but Iguanas was this buck wild nightclub in Tijuana. It was like 3 stories high, and they would put on the biggest live music shows and punk rock shows. I mean, Bad Brains was there in 87, and I still have my ticket stub. It was a wild show. And then, who else? Bad Religion I saw there, Chili Peppers. Oh my gosh, I'm kidding. I'm drawing a blank. Everyone, Butthole Surfers. It was wild. All different times, but it's been closed down for a long time. I wish it was so cool. Because, once you get across the border in Tijuana, anything goes. And so, yeah. But you just always lived for shows and music. And that's how I met Bradley was, we have a magazine here or a newspaper here called The Reader. It comes out weekly. And me and my friends would always get it every week and look to see what the shows coming up were and which shows we were going to. And we'll rewind back to the original was, San Miguel, which is down in Baja. It's a surf spot. And Bradley and the boys went down there to surf, and they had a bunch of cassettes. This is before they ever signed or anything. This is probably in 91, 92. And a friend of ours in Ocean Beach brought back one cassette and played it for us. It was a house party, and that one cassette, we all fell in love with it. That one cassette probably got copied by everyone in OB that was a part of our crew. I mean, every house party you went to that summer, Sublime was playing. And all we knew was that they were from Long Beach. We didn't know what they looked like. We didn't know anything about them, but they were playing punk rock, hip hop, ska, and reggae, which we were all listening to at the time. So we're like, what is this? I mean, Beastie Boys was the closest to it, like, white hip hop group or rapper group. But this blew doors on everything because it incorporated all that. So they were sampling, they were doing versions, which is a very Jamaican thing, a version. They were doing punk rock, like killing it. So it was at every house party that summer. So then when The Reader came out about 6 months later and we saw that they were playing in San Diego for the first time, but the place they were playing at was called Winters. And that was a heavy metal bar, like a total Hesher bar, which was over by, State College. Which was bad booking. But so we went. There was like about 8 of us that went. So we showed up and maybe like 10 other people. Oh, sorry. We showed up and like maybe 10 other people. And we were all worried that like they wouldn't want to come back because nobody came to their show. But it was really easy to go up and talk to them when they were loading out because nobody was there. And so we invited them down to OB, and there's a spot, the Jetty out by Dog Beach, where we'd have bonfires. And we said, so you don't have to drive back to Long Beach. You guys can come crash on our friend's floor and come have a bonfire. They were only worried about their band equipment because they had a pickup truck, and everything was stacked up in there. But they came and hung out, and we assured them that nothing would happen. And nothing did happen to their band equipment. And that night, we stayed at my homegirl's house, Kimmy, in OB, and slept on the floor. I slept next to Brad, but we just talked all night. We were just friends, but he was so cool. I wish I could remember what we talked about. We talked until the sun came up. And then every time after that, when they'd come to San Diego and play, I'd always go to the shows, and he'd always remember me, which was really cool. But we were friends for a couple of years before we started seeing each other. I had a boyfriend at the time, and my boyfriend would always go, "Your favorite band is playing. You're so stupid that lead singer totally wants you." And I'm like, "Ew, he's not even my type." So the night that I broke out with my boyfriend, I went to Ole Madrid, and that was downtown in the Gas Lap on 5th, early days. This was probably 92. I called my girls and I said, let's go dancing. And they were all going to Ole Madrid. And I didn't usually go to clubs like that because I only went to like hip hop and punk rock clubs, but I just wanted to go out. We're standing in line and I hear Sublime play. Now, I think back in hindsight, Sublime wasn't on the radio yet. So I don't know why that didn't put me out, like make me realize that they were live, because Ole Madrid wasn't known for live music. They had just built the stage downstairs and opened it up for live music. I didn't know that. I was out of the loop. So here's Sublime, and I'm thinking or a DJ's playing it. Then the next song, Sublime. I'm like, what DJ plays the same band twice? Right. So I ran up to the door guy and I said, is that a live band? He goes, yeah, they're from Long Beach. And I go, can I get in right now, please? Can I get in? And he let me in, ran downstairs, ran up to the stage, and Brad stopped playing. The band was still going, but he stopped playing his guitar and singing. He got down on his knees and gave him a big hug, and we weren't apart after that. That's all she wrote.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was, you look back and it's like kind of meant to be, I guess, destiny.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he's so sweet. And, he'd come down to San Diego and hang out with me because I was still working, slinging sushi. And, or I'd go up to Long Beach, and this is, before they were on the radio, before they played, bigger venues like House of Blues or anything like that. And, it was grimy and, they were struggling, but I was used to that because every guy I knew was in a band, and that's the way they came up.
Right. I wonder, was that like before 40 Ounces to Freedom?
It was right after 40 Ounces to Freedom, which they produced and they put out on Skunk Records. All their records, the only record they put out with Universal was the very last one, the self-titled one with Brad's back on it with his tattoo. Mm-hmm. That was the only one that Universal officially put out. They almost didn't put it out because he passed away before they got it released. They just got home from recording it. And so they were thinking about not putting it out. I'm so glad they did, because it's an epic album, and it's their first, like, in the studio, well-produced, grown-up record with a record label. So, yeah. But all the stuff before that was all them by the, seat of their pants. I mean, they
did such a good job.
They weren't the most, they didn't follow any rules as a band. They were very punk rock attitude. And they barely got, sometimes they barely got to the show. I mean, this was before cell phones, before computers. I mean, it was all word of mouth. They had a huge underground following. Word of mouth and flyers, paper flyers, posted up to telephone poles and at shows and stuff. And there was times where they missed each other. I mean, I had to drive Bradley to San Francisco one time because we missed the tour van. rushing to drop him off back in Long Beach. He was here in San Diego with me, and he forgot the time they were supposed to meet. So by the time we got up there, they were already gone. There's no way to call him and say, hey, come back or meet us somewhere else. So I had to drive him all the way to San Francisco. And that night they played with Eka Mouse and forget who else. But anyways, they always played either punk rock shows or reggae shows because there was no Cali Roots back then. And Cali Roots is the music now that's mostly, you know, California, not all California, but, you know, the loosely reggae style music.
California rock reggae type stuff.
Yep.
I mean,
I call it California Roots, but, you know, a lot of them credit Sublime for paving the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, like Slightly Stupid, Stick Figure, Revolution, all those kind of groups, and they're great. I mean, it's huge.
They all credit Sublime.
Yeah.
Talk to them all.
Yeah, and it's really cool, you know. But, I mean, I know Bradley could see it, but I mean, if he would have known back then that he was going to make all this happen, that paved the way for it, he would have just been thrilled. I mean, he wouldn't have been able to believe it, you know, but it's huge. I moved to Hawaii because I moved to Hawaii about 2 years after he passed away. About 2 years after he passed away.
Which island did you move to?
Oahu.
Oh, okay.
It healed my heart, you know, it was far away enough from everything. Because staying in Long Beach, I moved to Long Beach when I was pregnant with Jake. And we got a house together, Brad and I, and had Jake, you know, and I love Long Beach, you know, always treats me well. And I go up there often, you know, still, because Jacob now lives in Long Beach. And anyhow, so after Bradley passed away, I tried to stay in Long Beach. Coming back to San Diego, I'd see all my homies, and they'd be like, are you okay? You know, and I wasn't, but you want to make people feel better. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And I didn't want to stay in Long Beach because it reminded me of Bradley so much. And I started going to Hawaii with the Long Beach All Stars. And Long Beach All Stars formed after Bradley passed away to do one show. Seriously, to do one show. It was a benefit show to raise awareness of drug addiction and music, you know, because Bradley passed away from a heroin overdose. It was a total accident. And so they were trying to raise awareness. So everyone in that band was Brad's homies, but half the band had never been in a band. It was chaos, but it was Brad because it was our way of uniting and mourning, and everybody there, Bradley considered a brother, and they pulled it off. And now, almost 30 years later, they're still performing. They're my favorite band. But they were broken up for about 10 years, and then now they're back together again, and they put out a new record, and Opie Ortiz is the singer, and he wrote that record, and it's so good. And that's when I met my Ohana now, you know, my friends that are still there, still friends with, go back every year. And I was there for almost 2 years, and I got homesick, but I was ready to come home. So it healed my heart. That aloha's a real thing. You know, it's not just shaka aloha. It's for real. It's love. And hopefully I'll end up there. You know, the Sublime Sun, everyone knows, who's a fan knows the Sublime Sun. That's our biggest, most popular artwork
everybody
that goes
knows
on
that.
the t-shirts and everything.
And that was Opie?
Opie Ortiz, who now sings for Double Stars and who's tattoo artist. He's the one who tattooed all, you know, Brad's back and the Jacob on his neck. You know, album art is traditionally, I mean, throughout forever, the artist gets paid once. You know, like probably the Dancing Bears for Grateful Dead was a 2 joints. You know, he got paid 2 joints. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully he got paid more than that. But Opie, he's his brother. And when vinyl started going out, shortly after Brad passed away, vinyl was gone. CDs took over, and then there was Napster started, where people started.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That's where you get Apple Music and all the downloading started with Napster, but they were doing it like pirated. They weren't paying the artists for the music they were downloading. And so there was no money coming in. Nowhere. There was no working band, because this was before the Double Stars started, and we don't get royalties from Double Stars. It was scary. And the only money that was coming in was from merch. And every time I'd get a check for that Sublime Sun, it'd kill me that, you know, Opie and his family were struggling. And so I went to management and to our lawyers through Universal Records and said, I want him to get a royalty. And they're like, oh, that doesn't happen. Everyone was against me, you know, like trying to talk me out of it. And I go, but it's got to happen. Because without that Sublime Sun, we'd be starving. And the artist is starving. So let's give him some money. He wasn't starving, but he was, you know, working hard, slinging tattoos. So I got him a royalty, and it's, you know,
that's
appropriate,
awesome.
you know. And I'm sure, like a lot of artists, it does make sense because they pay him once and they don't even really know the artist, or they don't ever see him again. But he's family, you know. So
I love that.
The merch started, and then I remember shortly after Brad passed away, I went into Virgin Records, which is no longer around, but it was in Newport Beach. It was a huge one, And I went in and there was a huge Sublime Sun, like a cardboard one or whatever, hanging on the wall. Huge. And I remember going up to the manager and saying, who did that? And I want one of those. And I called management and said, I want one of those. Who did that? They're like, they didn't know. And they had like a Sublime clock, like a bootleg little clock with a sun on it. So we called a meeting. I said, I don't ever want to go into a store again and see something that has Sublime on it. He loves me. I don't ever want to go into a store again and see something that has Sublime on it that we didn't put out. Right. So that's when we started working with Live Nation. Management got us connected with Live Nation. And Bud and Eric, they trust me. They just kind of let me take over on that because they were still... they were both in Dub All Stars originally, Long Beach Dub All Stars. Right. Bud and Eric was there, and they toured a lot. That band that was supposed to be one show, we were together for a few years. Before they split up for 10, and now they're back together again. It's a different lineup, but you still have Opie singing. So they're rock stars. They were doing their thing, so they trusted me to do it, and I've been doing it ever since. It's so fun. I love it.
That's awesome.
And like the big festivals, the big Cali Roots festivals, the T-shirt I see the most is the Sublime Sun.
Yeah,
so
cool.
cool.
You see everywhere.
And I was just at the No Values concert, which was in Pomona. It was the big punk rock show. 48 punk rock bands, like iconic, all the iconic punk rock bands that you've ever known, all in one day. And I saw so many Sublime Sun T-shirts there because Sublime also headlined this show last weekend. And he didn't understand because he's a baby that he couldn't do that to Lou Dog. So Lou Dog would spend the whole day finding hiding spots to get away from Jake. And Lou Dog was known to bite, but he never bit Jake, but still I just felt like it was dog torture. Because he was running away from Jake all the time, so he wouldn't bite him. But I ended up giving him to Michael Happold, who's the manager of Sublime before, they signed with Universal. I mean, he was there throughout all the beginnings, and he took Lou Dog. But Louis was never the same. He got to where he was, like, having separation anxiety. Like, if Michael went anywhere and left Lou, he'd come back and he had knot on his own wrists. Like, bad, like to the bone. I mean, he was just depressed. Before I gave him to Michael, he would sit in our house, and we had a couch that was against the window. And he'd sit on the couch with his chin on the back of the couch looking out the window, and he would just sigh. Like he was just waiting. Because it was a spirit animal. I've never seen two people more connected. I mean, two people. Like Lou Dog's a person, but I haven't never seen a person and their pet more connected than Bradley and Lou Dog. Louis slept between us at night, every night.
I don't know. Maybe it was at your place in Long Beach, but it was Bradley playing acoustically, and there was a lot on the acoustic album, like the Bradley Nowell Friends, but he's singing the Lou Dog because he ran away.
To the moon.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. Because he got stolen one night. There was a spot in Long Beach called the Blue Cafe, and they'd have live shows there every weekend, or almost every night. And we had a lot of friends that worked there, so we get free beer and free food, because, I mean, that's how, not ghetto, but, just coming up they were. They were punk rock, and they just barely had any money. We'd go to people's houses hoping they would buy beer or offer us a beer, because I was slinging sushi, and he was playing, little dive bars and stuff, Sublime was. And anyways, so we went to Blue Cafe that night. I don't remember who was playing, but we knew a bunch of our friends were working that night, and he tied the patio. They had a patio outside with tables and chairs, and it was packed. And then you go inside and there's a bar, and then you go upstairs and there's pool tables. And we were meeting some friends upstairs. So he tied Lou Dog up outside, and he notoriously always tied him up with his belt, because he never had a dog leash. He couldn't freaking keep a dog leash for the life of it. So he'd always tie him up with his belt. We go inside, we say hi, along the way, and we make our ways upstairs. And the first thing he did was go straight to the windows to check on Lou Dog. So within like 5-10 minutes, he was gone. And so we went downstairs, asking everybody on the patio, and they said, yes, truck pulled up. And the guy got out and put him in the truck and left. Well, Lou Dog had a tag. They thought he had his collar on, even though he didn't have his leash, he had his collar on. And it had his parents' phone number. Thank goodness. But he didn't know that. I mean, it was 24 hours before he got him back. So that night, you couldn't even talk to Bradley. We went back to his house, and that's when he wrote, Lou Dog Went to the Moon. And it's a cover of an old song, but he changed all the words up. And then I made photocopies of his picture, Lou Dog's picture, and I drew wanted, or a scene, and didn't even have time to put him up, because the very next day, his dad called and said that somebody dropped him off at the gay bar right by their house. It was called Ripples. It's on Ocean Boulevard. I guess his friend had a conscience, waited for the guy that stole him to pass out. He stole him because Lou Dog was breedable. You know, he had his balls. So I mean, that's money, and he's full bred. So, his friend called the number and said, I'll drop him off right now. And he was going to drop him off all the way to the house, his parents' house, but he got freaked out and he dropped him off at the gay bar, Ripples. And so then they called his parents. They went and picked him up. And I forget what it was, you know, afternoon, where Bradley lived at the time. He lived above a liquor store, and there was, a big gate over the staircase that went up to the apartments. And we heard the gate open, and then all of a sudden he heard barking. And I remember it was the first time in 24 hours that he like kind of perked up. Then we didn't hear more barking. He's like sad, like that's not nice, you know, like every dog barking is going to remind me of Lou Dog. And then we heard it again. And this next thing you know, he comes running into the apartment. The door was kind of cracked and he came running in, and that was the most joyous moment. So thank goodness something was watching out for him. Thank goodness that his friend had a conscience, the kidnapper. But yeah, that's where
Did you ever happen to find out who the guy was?
No.
Who the guy
that'd be
was?
funny. That would be such a trip if he came forward, you know, and said, it was me, I was stupid, I was 20.
Well, I was thinking the guy that actually had the conscience.
Yes,
the guy that helped it out.
I wish.
Yeah, because
if only he knew that Dalmatian would become famous one day, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've lost a dog, and that's the worst possible feeling. Yeah.
Especially a crowded patio like that. The guy had some nerve, you know, some balls. He was drunk. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But to go in front of a bunch of people like that who all kind of knew Bradley. I mean, not a whole lot. They had a big underground following. Everyone knew in the music scene, the underground music scene, who Brad and Bud and Eric were. But as far as being famous, they still weren't famous, you know. The Lou Dog wasn't famous yet. They hadn't been on the radio yet. And the first song that was on the radio was Date Rape, which, by the way, was like the boys' least favorite song to play live, you know? And once it got on the radio, everyone would holler it out at shows to play it. And they were like, oh. But it was the big song, you know?
What was your favorite song?
Several songs. There's a few songs.
Yeah, it's got to be hard to have.
Yeah, definitely off their last album was Jailhouse. I love the way Bradley sounds on it. And it's a combination of 3 different songs. It's because one thing that Bradley learned, you know, he had gone to Jamaica a few times with his folks, his dad, to go sailing. And like starting out at an early age, I think maybe 14. So he saw reggae for the first time live in Jamaica. I mean, that's amazing. What white boy goes to Jamaica and sees it firsthand? And so it really changed his musical taste in his world. And so he loved reggae first and foremost. And then punk rock, you know. So anyways, back to that song. It's 3 different songs. It's Tenor Saw, which is a Jamaican artist. And it's a Bob Marley song, Jailhouse. And the third one, I can't remember the third one right now, but it's, you know, and in Jamaican music, they call it a version. It's where they have one rhythm and, usually put out by whatever recording studio, their Studio One. And, anyways, every singer in Jamaica will take that rhythm and make their own song out of it, their own words. So you'll hear a lot of the same beats and songs, but they're all different, you know, lyrics and stuff. Or they didn't really mash up like Brad started doing. That was his hip hop and rap influence, was taking samples. But he also would mash up songs, and they call them a version. You do your own version.
Right.
And so, yeah, next time you listen to Jailhouse, maybe you could figure out who the third. And then I like the one he does. It's just him and his guitar plugged in. Trenchtown Rock. That's a Bob Marley song, and it's just so raw.
Yeah.
I forget which record it's off of. I want to say 40 ounce, maybe. Anyways, it's just Bradley and his voice, and it's just really,
the effect he has on
and
the guitar.
Lyrics are like, one good thing about music, when it hits you feel no pain, and that's such a true statement.
Yeah.
Because, you know, some people don't get the goosebumps. They don't feel music, they just hear it, or they just don't even listen to it. I mean, there's a small amount of people, but could you imagine no music? And no goosebumps, you know, there's the feeling you get from certain songs, the certain notes, and that statement, you know, or that line, one good thing about music, when it hits you feel no pain, it's so true. Or music soothes the savage beast. And
the way he sings, it was so much emotion.
Oh yeah. And he like emotion. That's really what it was. Cause people are like, he could do falsettos, he could do the reggae, you know, dance hall style, but it was, and he had just a great range, and his tone was so good, but it was really the feeling he had. And he was, if anything, he was a fan of music, first and foremost, before he was a singer. And he loved so much music that he would make me sick of some songs. He'd find a new song and he'd fall in love with it and he'd play it over and over and over again. But that was the thing, he was a huge fan. And even if anyone did recognize him, or the people after the shows would come and, you know, praise him, he would get so tickled because he just couldn't believe it. Like, they really like my music, you know, because it wasn't that he was stealing from other people. It's normal. Like hip hop does it with samples, and Jamaican artists do it with versions. And so that's what he was doing. And that's what caught us all, because at that time we were all listening to that stuff and we all knew that, but they did it all together at once. And it was so cool.
Yeah. And he communicated, like, you could tell if you're the story about losing Lou Dog, and then going to the guitar.
Yeah.
You know, like,
spoke through the music.
And that's whether you're big, whether you're a big, huge music artist, or that's what he did for emotion, right? So then that's probably as emotional as you could be, losing your dog and then going to write music.
And I think that's the one common factor in all good music, is when people write, the artist writes from experience, stuff that's truly happened to them. Even though it's personal to them, so many people will relate to it. You know, the honesty and the experience. It's those are the best songs that really get to you. And Bradley loved all dogs. You know, the way he got Lou Dog was because Lou Dog was a puppy. A friend of theirs, they went and partied at a friend's house in Long Beach, whose parents were out of town. And Lou Dog was a puppy in the laundry room, and he was sick. So he's kind of locked in the laundry room, and Brad was so upset by it. You know, went and hung out with them during the party, and then he went back the next day and traded his skateboard for Lou Dog, because he felt like he was going to die if he stayed at his friend's house, because he wasn't really paying attention to him and he was sick. So I think dogs that know they've been saved, totally different dogs.
Right. They're
like so grateful and so loyal and cool. But yeah, they came about in a weird way, you know. Yeah. So traded a skateboard for him. Yeah. The Cali Roots scene genre, they do festivals like starting in February, which is the Long Beach one, kind of the season opener, all the way through the summer, all up and down the coast, you know, and all over the United States. And
they do.
Usually they're 3-day long festivals, and they sell out all 3 days. Okay. So that shows you how the music is wanted and needed and still thriving. It's like a whole new life for Sublime.
Yeah.
And everyone feels that Bradley's completely involved in it. Like, he made it happen. They were supposed to play one time for HR's benefit, and now they're still going, doing festivals and paying tribute, and Bradley's there for sure.
I mean, Coachella, that's amazing.
Coachella's a beast.
Yeah.
It's humongous. And I went. I don't think I ever want to go again. Not that it was a bad experience. It's just so gigantic. I think there was like 200,000 people there, they estimated.
It was a mess.
It was crazy. It's spread out around 4 stages, but still, it's insane. But they killed it. They did so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So more to come, for sure.